Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome everyone to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode 232 with myself, Jim Fuhs. You've seen that guy over the last, month and a half. And today we're joined by Dr. I, also known as addyson-zhang. She's pushing this classroom without walls movement, and I think this is actually a really popular or important time to actually be doing that, as lots of in-person conferences are getting canceled, sporting events, school classes, what else? Pretty much almost most anything that is actually like people, gathering in a place. Obviously this is because of the coronavirus. So, we're not going to talk about that much, but we're going to talk about just the impact that she's already been having before all of this. So she's, in a sense, a thought leader in that space, because she, saw, hey, there is a need in the marketplace. And so she built something. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring on Jim. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Nice and warm here today in Marietta, Georgia. A little bit overcast, but yeah, it's really been fascinating times, as they say, with all the things going on and how it really is making things like what we're doing, live streaming, even more important for not just marketers but businesses in general. And there's a lot of people now trying to figure out this remote work thing. So I think that this is definitely some of the things we'll be talking about. I think are very timely, and I think it's something that people need to not just think of this as a short term, but a long term sort of practice to start to put into place.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point to make, is that what, this is not new. I mean, online learning, it's been around for quite a while, actually, in various capacities. But I think one thing that is, kind of coming about as a result of obviously all this that's going around the world, and it's the fact that it actually is forcing, I think, businesses to look at their, way they run the business and say, hey, what, are there things that we need to be doing differently? Do we need to move to, maybe a bigger remote work? I mean, this could almost be that big shift where, hey, the 9 to 5 maybe might go away, maybe. So we'll see. But I'm going to go ahead and bring on I. How are you doing?
Hey everyone, I'm doing great. So honored and excited to be here with you both.
So do us a favor, tell us, hopefully we captured the essence, but if we didn't, do us a favor and tell everyone, about the classroom without walls that you started. And obviously then we're going to catch up later on the show with some additional questions on that. But, what's your background? How'd you get started with Classroom Without Walls?
I mean, you guys summarized my background pretty well, but I am a professor turned entrepreneur. And last year, I taught in higher education in the US and a few different countries for 10 plus years. And I realized after so many years how the traditional system is not preparing our children to be future ready. So at Classroom Without Walls, we teach our children what they are not learning from schools to be future ready.
Fantastic. So, Jim, anything y'all want to add, or do we want to jump into topics?
No, I mean, I just have been blessed that I became friends originally, right, through Twitter, and then we got to meet in real life at a conference a couple of years ago, and we've stayed connected. And it's just been amazing to watch her growth in this space. I mean, she definitely is not only a thought leader, but has taken huge risk. I mean, she left a very successful career as a university professor because she's passionate about what she does. She just had her first successful launch where she did this in Singapore, and she's got tons of people signing up to help her and wanting to be a part of this. I'm hoping that I can at some point join in this as well, because I really do think that it's the future, and even with what's going on right now, There's opportunity for people, and like we were talking before this started, right? There's teachers struggling, like, oh, now I got to teach online. How am I going to do that? So, and I think I brings a lot to the table when it comes to that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's very kind of you, Jim. And so true, like so many even entrepreneurs, they think like we think we know how to teach online, but teaching online is very different from teaching in person. And just because you can put information, upload this to a computer, to a slide, doesn't mean you know how to teach online very effectively. Actually, for online classes, the completion rate is as low as 15%, 15. Like,
Wow.
like I struggle with finishing the classes I personally purchased, and many people have the same struggle. So it is, especially in times like a health crisis. Yeah, well, I think it's something very important. And we also need to learn. Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's a great point you bring up, which is, people, they purchase courses, they don't finish them. I'm guilty as well.
Me too.
Having purchased a bunch of courses, and it's, part of it's like, it's how motivated is somebody, but at the same time, you do have to have some sort of plan in place to get, and that's where having a really good teacher comes into play, kind of putting a little extra pressure on you to get you through that. So, don't just keep buying more courses. Maybe you want to spend some of that money on someone who can coach you to actually do a better job at finishing the work that you're doing. So
totally.
We're going to talk a little more, with you in a little bit. So we got a visitor here. So we're going to talk a little more about your Classroom Without Walls in a bit. But Jem, I want to kick things off because we got a lot of news that we want to talk about this week.
Yes.
Where do we start?
Let's talk with Twitter's foray into stories called Fleet.
So what do we have going on here?
Well, I'm a little confused myself because tweets don't last that long to begin with, as far as their shelf life, and so by creating a stories component where it'll last for 24 hours and disappear, I'm not really sure how I see this, and I would definitely be interested because I know is also a power Twitter user. What her thoughts are? I mean, I know we're going to tie in this into another breaking news, if you want to call it, on stories in general, but it's like I feel like we talked last week about LinkedIn coming up with their stories feature. Why does every platform feel like they need to add stories, and does it really add value and to the user base when you can't even get most of the user base are not heavy content creators to begin with? I mean, what do you think,
I think everyone is trying to add more stories. I can definitely understand why, because I think we are so tired of doing business with business. We want to do business with human beings. So I can see why stories are becoming more and more popular. But based on my understanding of many people on LinkedIn, I don't know. I don't think many of them will actually just, hey, stories are here, I'm going to start using it right away. Because I feel like people on LinkedIn, they're kind of like a little bit more conservative, a little bit more traditional. And if they want to push this, they really have to partner up with a few influencers, content creators who are really big on video, who love doing stories, that type of thing, and to make this work. But on the other hand, like every channel, like seriously, who has time to watch every single platform's stories? I don't know. Like, I don't. I was just having this conversation with my husband. We have so many content creators. We don't have enough content consumers. Like, seriously, who has time? I don't have time to watch this person on LinkedIn, watch this person on Instagram, this and that, TikTok. I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of my take on this.
No, and I just finished reading Neil Schaefer's book, The Age of Influence, and even when you look at creation in general, right? It's only really overall about 1% that are consistent creators. I think he said about 9% are occasional, and 90% of people are basically lurkers. And so you kind of get into, and it's funny, right? Because we all usually we surround ourselves, like even the three of us, right? We all are always creating content. So to us, it seems the norm. But then when we really look at our network of people we're connected with, a lot of them don't do it at all. So I think that's a great point, as far as, and I know that's the same with me. I don't have time to go through all my friends' stories. I'd love to, but I gotta make a living.
Totally. I so agree. And I think, in fact, my career, like my online career, kind of transition, had some big shift after I started producing content. I don't know if you experienced the same thing. Like in the beginning, I was like consuming a lot. My brand was growing, but after I started like creating my show, blogging, content on LinkedIn, on different platforms, I really started to see some more substantial growth in terms of my brand and my business. And yeah, I agree.
100% agree with you all. I mean, I think the key thing is it's you need to consume content, but at the same time, you also need to be mainly producing it. And to me, that's the most important part. I think, I'd say something to the effect of, if I want to get into producing more content, and consuming less, set, a certain amount of time for your day, or set up a system where you go through and you can quickly consume the content. Like, for example, put in an RSS feed and drop in, the blogs that you want to read and things like that. So you don't have to, like, you're not getting that and doubling up your email inbox, which means you got more work there, because those aren't really result producing activities. Put the content there. That way you can consume it, very quickly. You're grabbing the headlines. And then afterwards, if you find something interesting, I'd say we save a lot of things to Pocket. And so putting it into Pocket, we can at least, have it right there for later. And then that can actually read it to us as well. But definitely really good tip, I think, which is, making sure that you spend time producing content as opposed to always consuming it. And also look at the medium, I think, as well. But from a business perspective, how do we think this is going to impact a business?
I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I'll just say, for me, the jury's still out. I mean, Twitter brought in audio tweeting, and I don't know if that's really catching on, where a lot of people are doing audiogram tweets.
Not at all.
And so I just, sometimes I think we get these companies get caught up in the shiny object, like, oh, I got to have that too. And I'm a big believer in, like, do one thing well. I mean, Andrew and Pete talked about that last year in one of their keynotes, right? Do your one thing well instead of trying to be all things to all people. And that's where I think a lot of these platforms are really messing themselves up, because they're trying to do too many things as opposed to focusing on what it is that you want to be best at. I mean, what do you think,
I so agree. I was just like, having the same conversation with a person yesterday. We were actually talking about ClickFunnels, talking about how ClickFunnels is trying to do this, and that. They should just focus on the one thing they do so well. So we use ClickFunnels to build a funnel. But if we want to really have a robust like email system, follow up, we use like a different active campaign or different service. And even though ClickFunnels is trying to do that, we think that they are not really good at it. So really focus on that one thing and be really, really, really good at it. It's like the book, the one thing. People go to Starbucks for coffee. We don't really necessarily go there to buy certain types of food. They are known for coffee. So what is something that you really want to become known for, and focus on that, master that, and become so good at it? I agree.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. Get good at one thing before trying to do too many things. From a stories perspective, I think if I'm a business, I'm going to say the same exact thing I said last week, which is basically people should, you should go look at other brands like that are using stories well, and look and see, okay, like if they're using Facebook stories and Instagram stories, okay, let's compare what they're actually sharing. Are they using the same, are they putting out the same content on both platforms? Are they, creating something unique? And hey, if you want to know more about it, why not reach out to them and ask them, hey, I'm looking to get into stories myself. What do you recommend, or what challenges did you face when you were actually creating your own? Do you have anything else you want to add about this Twitter fleet or Twitter stories feature that's coming out? I mean, it's very limited, obviously. You can't like it, you can't retweet anything. But
I have a quick question. I wonder how many stories that you guys watch on a daily basis. Like, where do you go to watch stories? Like, to be honest, I barely watch any. Like, how about you guys?
I would say, yeah, some days I might watch a handful, other days I don't watch them at all. And if
Mhm.
it's maybe just because I'm on a platform like, oh, I see Judy Fox did a story. Let me click and see what she's doing.
Mhm.
But otherwise, it's not like I'm like, oh, I got to go find what stories these people are
The
creating.
same, the same, the same here.
Yep.
I mean, and the key thing is, I mean, if you look at I like the point that you made earlier, which is you have to produce content, and stories aren't, they're content, but not really.
Mhm.
So like, hey, if you want to get people back to your like website, you need to be putting content out on Google, and focusing on some of the bigger picture items, the things that are going to drive the massive amounts of traffic, because I don't think users are using stories, to the capacity that they should. And I think a lot of people struggle with it. So, for me, I don't use stories very often either. I mean, I'll check them out. But again, kind of to Jim's point, like if I see somebody's, icon pop up at the top, yeah, I might check it out, but I'm not sitting there like scrolling through all of the people that are doing
Mm.
stories to see what's going on. So we'll see how this goes. I mean, jury's still out. Again, this is also just being tested in Brazil at the moment. Hopefully, they're going to roll it out to everyone. And again, keep in mind it's going to be limited at first, and it's going to be limited at first, and then hopefully they'll add some features, but it'll be the same functionality you're probably used to. Just a quick note, by the way, I'm looking at a comment from from one of our viewers, Eileen. So she says, hey, I watch stories on Instagram most days and Facebook stories every few days. She's getting back to using Snapchat. So Eileen, why are you getting back to Snapchat? Actually, I want to hear this one. Is it that Instagram stories were really good and maybe they've gotten progressively worse, or what's the reason behind moving back to Snapchat?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. And hopefully she'll give us an answer in the comments. But let's you want to switch over, since we're still in the stories thing. Let's talk about what Facebook is now looking at. You could maybe argue it's long overdue, but they're actually going to allow you to share your Facebook stories to
Mm.
Instagram stories.
So what have I got going on? So we know that so sticking with stories, we know that that Facebook's trying to obviously merge Facebook stories and get you over to Instagram. What do you want to say about this one, Jim?
I mean, I guess in some ways it's like, why wasn't it that way from the beginning? And, as they continue to, since they own everything, they kind of go back and forth. So the question is, are you going to still have the same functionality when you cross over? And then of course you run into the whole issue of tagging, because tags don't carry over. That's why, you see it all the time. People share their Instagram post to Facebook and they don't change everything. It, just shows you their lack of knowledge on the platform. And so it was interesting. Eileen was mentioning that she likes the filters on Snapchat.
Mhm.
So it's and
Yeah,
then the Bitmoji thing, which I know we talked about a couple weeks ago. But I mean, I part of me says I don't know why they didn't do it from the get go, but kind of goes back to, is it going to make me do more Facebook stories and share them to Instagram? I don't know. Not me. People
Not
will.
me. Not me.
So I think from a business standpoint, I'll say this. I mean, there's some utility here, and it's the fact that if I'm a business and I don't know what to post on Facebook or Instagram stories, I now don't have to decide between two places. I can just do it on one place and then push them over to Instagram in this case. I think this, I'm glad they're finally kind of coming out with this, but again, it's in a way you're watering down the content. Because if somebody is already posting content on Facebook and now you're making it that, giving them that easy button to just say, hey, you know what, share this story to Instagram. I'm glad they're doing that. But if the content is poor content to begin with, it's, I think, just continuing that vicious cycle of, just bad content being put out there. What do you think,
I so agree. I mean, like, people say that our attention span is short, but I think it is not the problem of our attention span. It's really how good or how bad the content is. I think the feature itself won't make you become a celebrity or instantaneously famous. It's really showing up consistently how good your content is. Like personally, I started using story slice because just as what you guys mentioned earlier, in terms of SEO, like my long form articles, my hour-long interviews, and they give me the best traffic. Like stories,
Exactly.
I think it's fun to use to kind of humanize yourself a little bit. I do that. I show my family, my children, my cat.
Right.
But it is not my main focus. And I think depending on your audience, like my audience, I'm talking to the parents to join my school. My parents are not like, hey, funny. They are educational. They are successful. And my program is kind of a high-end program. So like, I think about my audience. They're not going to really watch me on leaders, executives. They're not going to watch me on stories all the time. But my long form article, teaching them something, and they like to consume that type of content. So I produce more. And I think that's how I think, my audience, my overall goal, and that informs my strategy in terms of the content I produce, including stories or not, and the platforms I want to be on. That's why I'm more active on LinkedIn nowadays.
Definitely. So Jem, what do you think the business utility is here? Like if I'm a retail business, for example, or just any business overall, how do you think this will actually benefit me?
I mean, if anything, it might build awareness. I think that would be my strongest reason for using stories, because if you're popping up in people's feed that you've got a new story, maybe they'll check you out. And I know as they add features, if you don't have it, like an example on Instagram, the swipe up, I do believe you can drive them to your website, maybe for things like that. But aside from that, it seems like it's a lot of work to have something disappear in 24 hours.
Definitely. And, and I'll say this, like one thing that we've done for stories for social chefs, and what we do, like for the show, for example, on Tuesday or Wednesday, we publish, some content to stories, but we don't spend a ton of time making the graphics for that. I mean, we came up with a bit of a framework we wanted to use. We changed out a couple of elements of it, when we published that out there. But, here's the thing. I mean, it's stories. I mean, you still have to know what to put in your stories. And that's the tough part, I think. And as Eileen put, again, if LinkedIn gets stories, will you use them? I think that's a great question, Eileen. We talked about that last week. I personally would use them. What about you, Jem? What about you,
I'm going to investigate it, but I think for me, I'm more focused on video with LinkedIn. There's such a small percentage of people that are putting out content on LinkedIn as it is. So I don't really, and I think I brought up a great point earlier, are the people that are your target audience in the B2B space that aren't on LinkedIn every day anyway. There's a lot of LinkedIn users that check in once a week. They're not going to see your stories. So I don't know. I may play around with it, but unless I really see some sort of traction, it's not going to be a priority.
What about you?
So for me, I think I will just definitely check it out for fun. And I think there's also benefits for being an early adopter. We see that with the LinkedIn video, the traffic is the organic traffic is really high for any new feature that is just being introduced to the platform. So for that particular reason, I may try it, but long-term speaking, I'm not sure. And also on LinkedIn, Jim, you were talking about video, and I don't know if this is kind of off topic, but what I discovered recently is LinkedIn documents. Have you ever tried it? Yes. And the organic reach for documents is insane. That's pretty much how I share my content nowadays. I use the documents, I create a newsletter, I do everything. That's how I share pictures. Like I have a post getting 50,000 views. I never get that many views for any content I produce on LinkedIn, but documents, very consistent, high views, high engagement.
Yeah, great point. I think that's a great point. So we got stories. We talked about LinkedIn stories last week. This week, Twitter stories called Twitter fleets, Facebook stories, posting to Instagram. Fantastic. Glad we got some, features being rolled out. Jem, where do we want to go next?
Do we want to go to YouTube Analytics and talk about that?
Sure. What do we got going on here?
So it looks like YouTube is finally adding some features. Of course, they are owned by Google. That's going to give you natively more data to really understand how your stuff is operating. I think that's data is always good, especially you should be analyzing the data of the effectiveness of your content and your engagement. So I think this is a think this is a positive thing.
What do you think? YouTube is rolling out advanced analytics. They'll now let you do comparisons for your YouTube videos, side-by-side comparisons. What do you think?
I think it's great. It's always better to rely on data to inform our decisions. I'm not really active on YouTube, but I love any type of analytics feature that help you make better decisions, grow your business, grow your brand. I love it. Yeah.
So here's a question, I guess. So like we talked about creating content. So we only have so many hours in the day, and we can choose to put that into stories content. We obviously know we probably won't do that. We can use it to make YouTube videos. We can use it to write some blog posts, and then obviously we need to have that time afterwards as well to analyze the data. Any recommendations for viewers on maybe how they can break that up so that there's like a good balance there? So I'm not always creating content and forgetting about the analytics or vice versa.
That's a really good question. I mean, I think it goes back to you need to have a strategy and really figure out what content resonates with your target audience and focus on that as opposed to, like we were talking about with stories. Don't try to do everything. And I is a great example of how, as she has evolved in her entrepreneurial journey, she's figured out what works and has stopped doing the things that don't work.
And, and here's the thing, like, so when you have something where you're not sure, whether you should stop it or not. And I think is one of the hardest things for people is to say, hey, you know what, enough is enough. When do I move on to something? What point do you run into something like that and then say, well, hey, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore? Like, do you have any tips you want to share?
I mean, like for me, almost every day in my life, I think the best way to validate our ideas is actually to take action. I mean, you can do so much planning, like plan this, plan that, think about this, map out the 10-year plan, whatever. But if you never take any action on it, you never know how the market is going to respond to you. Like Jim mentioned earlier, like last year, in December, I did my very first program for my own school. And to be honest with you, I wasn't prepared. I wasn't fully prepared. I didn't know how this was going to unfold. I had a vague idea in my mind. I have never done something like this before, but I took action. And I'm so happy I took action because the action itself has given me so much clarity on how am I going to improve this year, which part of the program resonated with my audience, which part didn't resonate, which part needs to be deleted, which part needs to be added, has given me so much clarity. And I feel like if you want to be 100% sure on anything before you take action, I think it's too late, or you are not taking a big enough risk. If you feel like 100% this is so sure everything's going to be like turn out to be perfect, I think you waited too long. If that's the case, like for me, like I don't know, maybe just my personality, and I feel like if I'm kind of 50%, I have this idea, kind of 50%, I take action, and the action will tell me what to do next, what not to do next. That's kind of me.
Very good points, I think, and it's tough. I mean, for a lot of people to get to the point where they don't want to, like, how do they give up something they're doing? I think for a lot of people, they struggle with that.
I think the market will tell you, like, if you like, for example, for me, 3 years ago, I launched a like streaming show, which was how I tried to break down the traditional physical walls. That's why in the classroom, that's why it is called Classroom Without Walls.
Right.
And I wasn't sure if this was a good idea or not. I just wanted to be a better teacher. But slowly my show has grown so much. I got Seth Godin on the show and so many people. I just booked Neil Patel on the show. And so the market is telling you, this is good, right? Like, keep doing this. People love it. I have just created a WhatsApp group and people telling me they love this, and they are telling me we want to learn more about this, we want to learn more about that, we're not interested in this. So look at your number, look at the data, and like listen, be a good listener. The market will tell you, stop taking action or keep going this direction. And so that's kind of how I move forward, like, keep taking action at the same time, be a good listener. Data, information, talk to people, and ask people in your community, what do you think about this? ask, and seek feedback and adjust, iterate.
And I like the point that you also made there, which is like, listen to what other people have to say. Like, you have to remember, like, it's your business. So I need to listen to what people have to say, but I don't let all of that advice cloud my judgment. If, like, for example, if you, and don't be afraid to ask people. That's the other thing. I mean, when we send out our daily email at socialchess.com/daily, like, everybody, I have a feedback link in every email where I want to know, hey, is the frequency enough? Is the content good? Are there things we can improve? And I look at every single response we get. And then I use that if I see, okay, well, I see 25 responses for the same topic. Maybe I need to actually change that or reconsider how I'm doing things. So definitely, keep that in mind. And don't be afraid, like, if it's negative feedback, and this is, I think, the toughest part for a lot of people, negative feedback. People take negative feedback very personal, and you're not going to be perfect. So
I remember that feeling. Yeah.
And if somebody gives you something negative, don't get mad. Ask questions. Hey,
Totally.
what can I do better? What can I do better to help you?
Yeah, I always say that. Thank you for the tough love. Like yesterday, literally, I asked people to review my ClickFunnels page, and some people told me, "Oh, this is not good." Blah blah blah. I said, "Oh wow, that's good. Thank you for the tough love. Let's have a conversation and tell me how I can improve." Kind of, I learned, depersonalize and our business from us, which can be hard.
Yeah, and have some thick skin. So so this new feature. I mean, YouTube Analytics. Make sure, again, it's for creators to be able to compare metrics side by side. I'd recommend, taking a spin with this. It's available in your YouTube channel. Log in, you'll start to see them at the top as well. If you log into YouTube, you'll start to see comparisons, and then you can go in and, look at, like, for example, you can see views versus comments, which I think is really important. Views versus comments tell me, well, hey, you know what? The engagement is, if I'm getting more views and no comments, maybe I need to ask more questions. And then you can also look at things such as views versus revenue as well. That kind of shows you how that whole map works as well from a monetization standpoint. But check that out as well. So YouTube Advanced Analytics. Okay. Where do we go from here?
Let's actually talk about one of the hottest topics in the world probably today. Let's talk about TikTok and the creator marketplace.
Okay, so you're gonna have to tell viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening, watching on Facebook, or listening to the podcast, we appreciate it. So, Jem, what do we got going on with TikTok here?
So TikTok is actually creating a marketplace for their creators, for people that maybe want to connect with these creators, and actually, I'm assuming, looking at a way to help the creators monetize, because I think that's been one of the big questions about TikTok is, how do I monetize this platform that's basically these short form videos that you can't always explain why. I mean, I will say I have been exploring it from the perspective of the Washington Post. Actually has a really good channel. So I've really been looking for the business use case of why to do it. I mean, perhaps you do short book reviews, but like, as you can see by some of these, I don't really know what a person dancing in the elevator does for my business. But I think they're definitely trying to generate a way for their creators to stand out and make revenue that are some of the better creators.
Definitely. What do you think, I?
Oh, the same. I always think about, I run a business. I always think about, how is this going to move my business forward? What is the potential ROI? I will follow people like Washington Post, Gary Vaynerchuk, and other people, content creators who are in the business field. And if it makes sense, I will try. Because I always remember the early days when Snapchat just came out quite a few years ago. I was a heavy Snapchat user, but at the time I was not running a business. I didn't really have a clear picture of why I was on Snapchat. And I think I really wasted lots of time. And I really got to know lots of people, which is great. But at the same time, I wasted so much time, like being on something, but there was no like, I guess, a strategic purpose behind me being on that platform, or like even the content I was creating. And so I like now I'm at a much better position. I first think about my business goals and the alignment, the alignment between this platform, the content here, and the demographics on this platform and my business. If there's an alignment, I will use it. If not, I will just be a passive lurker for some time to see how people use it and learn.
Yeah, Jim, anything you want to add on TikTok here?
No, I would agree with 100% there. I think that's, and that's one thing, right? You get into this whole concept of, do I need to be on every platform? Well, it probably doesn't hurt, as an example, to say maybe protect your business name, to create that account more and almost, be part of that 90% I was mentioning with Neil Schaefer's book, and basically be a lurker. Social listening is important, but don't feel like you got to go out there and start creating a bunch of content just because everybody else is doing it, and Mark Schaefer was even talking about in one of his presentations about the war for attention, how we're all being guru led, and if a guru tells you to do this, then you should do it too. Not necessarily,
100%.
Yeah, and I mean,
I love it. Sorry to interrupt you. I think there's a statement I forgot from whom. The best practice is what works for you. That's the best practice.
Exactly. Right. And there's no magic bullet. I mean, you're not able to, make everything all of a sudden like work, because what somebody did and what you did or what you do, they don't always line up. I mean, you have to find what it is that drives your business, where your customers are at. I mean, we get this question all the time. For example, we're talking about live video. People ask, well, hey, which platform should I use? And there's no answer to that. Like, I can answer it. I can't answer it. And Jim, like, none of us can answer it, because it all comes down to your individual business. Where do your customers spend the time? You have to ask your customers. If you're doing things and you're not moving the needle on things, and, the needle's just flat, you may want to talk to your customers. Maybe you're, for example, maybe you're broadcasting on the wrong channel, or the wrong time, or you've got the wrong content going out to them necessarily. So, and that's where the analytics data can really help. And for this, from a TikTok perspective, from a business perspective, if you are a TikTok creator and you have access to the TikTok marketplace as a creator, the benefit to this data is that you'll be able to get real-time data based on your influencer campaigns. So you'll get access to obviously how many people are viewing the content, engagement rate, and obviously your audience breakdown, like what the top markets are, what the gender is, the age range, obviously what kind of devices they're on. Obviously they do that because they want you to use the platform more, and then kind of tailor your content to that. So keep that in mind. So so with that, where do we want to go, Jim?
Do we have time to talk about one more topic?
Yeah, I think we could talk about another topic real quick.
Let's talk about Google Assistant being actually able to read to you. I think that's pretty exciting.
So I personally, I like this. I mean, I'm always about, trying to find ways to save yourself some time when you're doing something. So, I'm going to go ahead and introduce this one. I mean, if you've got a Google Assistant, basically they've added this new feature that will basically let you put in a website article and have it read to you. I like this. This means less email. This means, more time that I can devote to something else. So I like this. I really do. What do you guys think?
I like it. I'm thinking my cook, I can just listen. I don't have to. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. No, I think it's great. I mean, even just if you think about maybe you've got some subscriptions, like I have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal, I could have it start reading me articles while I'm working on something else. And, instead of playing music, right, actually get some things put into your brain to think about. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a different way of kind of another form of Audible, I think. So I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, you could use those tools. Like I said, I use Pocket, for example. Pocket will do the same thing. The one downside to a tool that can read the content to you is, well, actually, there's two downsides. One is we have the, I think at this point, like, we might overload ourselves with content. So we might say, hey, you know what? Oh, I could listen to content all the time. But if I'm trying to work on something, I don't necessarily want to be listening to content and trying to work. Right. So we have to curtail that. And I think the other part also is that most of these don't work offline. So they do usually need an internet connection. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to listen to this on the airplane, sometimes you're out of luck on that. As I learned actually on some recent trips I took. So, but very useful feature if you've got the Google Assistant feature. So I personally, I like this. I mean, again, it's all about being able to, like, don't just kind of going back to what I said earlier about, how if somebody has a course and you buy too many courses and you don't actually finish them, it's the same thing with content. You could have content overload. You're drinking too much out of the fire hose. So I think this is a very, very good feature for people that use the Google Assistant feature. And yeah, as Eileen says, she says, hey, I use Pocket for this, but she's going to check it out. Yeah, I use Pocket as well, Eileen. So both very useful features. Again, it comes down to what device you use. Mm-hmm. So any last thoughts you want to share on the Google Assistant being able to read web pages?
I think check it out. Definitely.
Okay. So with that, let's put I in the hot seat here before we get into tool time. So Jen, what you and I talked before, we had some questions for I to kind of have her like talk a little bit about the classroom without walls, but also have her share some tips for viewers and for listeners. What were those questions we had?
Well, the first thing is what really drove you to start Classroom Without Walls, and how do you see? We'll even tie it into the current, coronavirus thing. How do you really see where, in a sense, I really feel like you have been cutting edge, and I think there's a lot that can be learned from what you've been experiencing.
Oh, thank you so much. And I could really talk about this forever. Ask my husband. So I will try to be brief here. So like really how I got started on this journey was, and I was teaching social media, public relations, communication classes. And what I noticed from the traditional school environment was many teachers, we just talk. We don't really practice what we're teaching in the classroom. Including myself, in the early days, I was like, wow, no wonder our students, they're not learning. They don't know. Like, I don't know how many young people you guys work with. I interact with a lot, like kind of college age students, high school age students. They are very social media savvy, but they don't know how to use social media to build a brand, to engage in storytelling and the story selling, and to do captions, to do copywriting. They have no such skills. So that was my motivation. I decided to use myself as an example and to show my students the power of social media. And so I became a practitioner. I started producing content on social media, this and that, launched my live streaming show. And that's a very simple decision to become a better teacher, to use myself as an example, to show my students, literally changed my life, And even just like recently, and like I came back from Facebook education and Adobe education for some events, and we're really talking about like online learning. Kind of what I do at my school is blended learning, and how we can really leverage social media and creative technologies to collapse time and space to co-create content. And I think the old model, the sage on the stage, boys and girls, listen to me. I think that model is over. I think it is time that we come together as teachers and students at the same time. We teach from each other, we learn from each other, and social media is perfect for that. That's pretty much how I use social media to show up. I teach my heart out. And that's how, like, even a few days ago, I have a school from Nigeria. I mean, they discovered me. They asked me to host a live streaming show for them, just for one of their events. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And so many opportunities, like a school in India, they invited me to do a talk. They have come to me as a result of how I'm using this. I'm so passionate about teaching others how to leverage this. I call my live streaming shows the best classroom. We have people from US, UK, Singapore, Nigeria, Jamaica, and like so many, Slovenia, so many different countries. I think that's the power of social media. Like so many people don't know. They think when you turn on like TV channels and all those, you hear so much about the negative aspect of social media, children, like their identity is being hurt, committing suicide, depressed, this is and that as a result of social media. I think that is one side. There's the other side, which is how you guys are using social media and how we are using social media to inspire, to educate, and to transform lives and to unite people together. We can also do that, create a social movement. For me, Classroom Without Walls is my brand, but it is a social movement. That's what I'm doing here, to create a movement. And I leverage social media heavily and strategically to do that. Sorry, that's a long answer.
No big deal at all, actually. So Jem, I'm gonna let you take this one as well.
Yes. So what would you say, because I think you're definitely doing it, what would you say, how are you building trust by doing this, not only in the educational aspect, but how does it also carry over into your business?
Yeah, there are quite a few ways. I think the first is to really humanize who you are. Like for me, I'm an entrepreneur. My business, I'm my business. I'm the face for my business. And people connect with me. Even last year, people joined my program because how much they trust me as a person. So I think people need to understand people do business with people. You need to learn to use social media to humanize who you are and what you do. Share your stories. Why are you on this journey? What is the trigger behind what you do, and I think that's the number one, like to humanize you. And the second tip I want to share with others is really, when you think about business, right? Like we were talking about this attention span, there's so short, there's so much content there. I think as a business owner, right? When you think there are a few things that I can serve my audience, there are a few things that I can give. Gary Vee talks a lot about this: give, serving. So you can give away your time, you can give away your knowledge, you can also give away money. So what are some of those things that you can give away so that use that to build trust? For me, I give away so much free content. Like I have 2 live streaming shows, and on Thursday I also come out. I teach, how to get children to be future ready. So teach your heart out. And people were like, wow, she makes sense. I trust her. I love her. She's showing up consistently. She's teaching. So give away your time, your knowledge, and if you have money, scholarship donation and donating to your community. Those are the 3 primary ways that I use to build trust: time, knowledge, or money, whatever you have.
I think it's I think that's just a lot of great tips there. So Jem, you have any other questions?
No, I think she's definitely given us a lot, and I actually really like what she did, and I joined her WhatsApp group because it's kind of like, now that WhatsApp is, one, it's the most downloaded of all apps, is how can you leverage that? And even from the perspective of, there's a lot of nice things about WhatsApp that you don't think about, ease of use to share and communicate. And so I love what, in a sense, she's even being revolutionary in that. And yeah, it's amazing how many people have joined that little group just to keep.
And we have like 40 some people. Like I didn't even promote that much. And we have people from 12 different countries. Like I think if you have a global audience, WhatsApp is amazing. Most people in the United States do not use WhatsApp, but I do business with people kind of globally, and it is heavily used outside of the US. So I really love that. And also, I'm a part of 200 plus Facebook groups. It is too much, but WhatsApp is definitely not that crazy. So it's kind of an oasis in this like super noisy, desert. And so I like that way. And people it is easier to grab people's attention.
Yes, absolutely.
Great point, actually. So I'll have to get on your WhatsApp group. If that's something we want to publish, let me know, and we can also put that in the blog post recap that we'll have available going out this weekend. But just let me know. So with it, I'm going to switch gears. We're going to go over to Tool Time. So one last segment for the show. Tool Time is basically where we bring you 2 tools each week. This could be hardware, could be software. it could be a really cool device or something you can, an accessory maybe that you can add to your business to help you get more out of it. And the first tool that we're going to talk about this week is called Metricool. And Jim, I'm going to have you actually share this one. I'm going to go and bring up just a quick screenshot of this. But Jim, what is Metricool?
So Metricool is really, I'm still learning about it, but I met them at the conference we were at, and if you can share the screen.
Sure.
that
Let
I
me bring
just
you up. Yeah.
popped up.
Well, let's tell people what is Metricool. Yeah, I'm going to pull this
So
up.
Metricool,
Mhm.
it's a company out of Spain, and
Okay.
it really helps you manage a lot of your digital presence across multiple platforms to include, you know, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. They're doing a great job of where you can track, say, hashtags at like an event, a live event. So as an example, they can kind of show you who the most engaged people
Okay.
are, how they're doing stuff. It'll let you take snapshots in time to see
Okay.
things, with the Twitter part, how, your new followers, people that have unfollowed you, some
Okay.
of the things that some other programs used to do that are no longer around. But they've actually won some awards in Europe for what they're designing. Super nice people. I was glad to get to meet them in person. And so it's just something I started using. They do have the ability to get a free trial and check out. I really think it's it goes back to having that data and really being able to analyze what's going on with your platforms.
Let me go ahead and bring up your screenshot here, or sorry, your screenshot, actually, your account, if that's okay.
Yes, yes,
Okay. So basically, I showed you guys, the quick homepage there. That was Metricool. It basically lets you get access to analytics data. And this data is not just, oh, it's pulling my social data. It's actually able to pull my social data. I can pull in my competitors. I can do a competitor analysis. I can pull in, websites. So basically Google Analytics data basically as well. And as Jem's showing here is also he's able to show the people that, he acquired, the people that he lost. And this is what, Twitter, right?
yes,
So
yes.
he's able to pull up this data and quickly get access to, not just like, well, hey, who's the audience that I've got, joining, but
Right,
also looking at his growth, the content he's putting out, how many likes it's generating, retweets. And so for
right.
now, obviously, one thing I want to go back to that stat, actually scroll up a little bit. So
Mhm.
like part for the interactions, and this to me is important. So great, you got 1,300 likes on your content, but here's the thing on Twitter: likes really don't mean much of anything. Likes on any Facebook channel or social media channel really don't mean a whole lot. What's really important, is you want people to be able to do mentions. You want them to retweet you. So it's not like, hey, I've got a ton of tweets going out there. I want to be generating retweets and mentions, and interactions with people versus, hey, you know what? They're liking my content. Great. Because that can actually be automated.
Yes.
So this is Metricool. What's the cost of Metricool, by the way?
It's about $14 a month, but like I said, I know they've got, and you can also have a free account. You're not able to manage as much, but considering I think you can have 10 different accounts you can manage with the paid version. I definitely think it's worth checking out. They keep adding new features. I'm going to start going through some of their tutorials so I can really learn some of the things I do. But even the fact that it ties into Google My Business for me as
Yeah,
someone that works with that a lot, that's something I think is worth checking out.
definitely. So anything you want to add about Metricool? Have you had a chance to use Metricool or try it?
No, I'm actually taking notes. So thank you.
And that's actually what we like. I mean, we like it when, like we don't bring on topics like, hey, you know what, this guest knows this topic or this guest knows this tool. We like to expose them to, everyone basically. If you're a guest or if you're a guest, if you're co-hosting, if you're also, just tuning in, watching us live or watching watching the replay. Again, I mean, these tools are designed to help you get more out of your business. And I think the cool thing about Metricool here is just the fact that it helps consolidate a lot of the analytics. You could spend a lot of your time just looking at, for example, Facebook Insights, and then you got to go look at Twitter, then you got to go look at, YouTube analytics and all this other data. It helps aggregate all of this for you. And also kind of as Jim has pulled up here as well, if you're doing anything with Google ads or Facebook ads, again, you don't have to go to another place. You can pull all of it up in the Metricool application. So that's the first tool that we have for viewers this week is Metricool. Okay. So the last tool we have for everyone is called Braintoss. And Braintoss it's an iOS and an Android app. Basically, what it does is I kind of want to say that it's almost like an Evernote competitor. What do you think, Jem?
Yeah, that it seemed that way. You know, it's another way to be able to throw your thoughts and ideas into an app pretty quickly. I think there's a lot of utility in doing that. I think as we're so busy and we don't always have a pad and paper in front of us, or we're not near something where we can put stuff down. So I think it's definitely something worth investigating, and I think some of it too just becomes what are you comfortable with. But yeah,
Mm.
I think I could always use a place to toss my brain.
So how do you keep track of your notes, like, or any ideas you have?
Yeah, I use quite a few. I still use Evernote. I used to be a heavy user of Trello, but now I use Asana. I love, love, love Asana. So that's how I organize, like my ideas, my projects, upcoming projects, and so I love Asana. So that's what I use.
So, okay. So like kind of can you walk through like just kind of your process just real quick? Okay, so you've got some big idea, you got 5 ideas in your brain. What do you do?
So I have like 5 ideas. I will create like 5 kind of different projects on
Okay.
Asana, right? And within each project, and maybe I'm talking about potential clients and
Okay.
information I need to consume to develop my teaching content, and like the script I need to use for my sales. And so
Okay.
I will like kind of have different branches, different categories. Within each category, I have different subtopics. So that's
Okay.
kind of how I use. Yeah. And I
Good.
love Asana because you can either have them, you can either display your content as list ABC, or as
Right.
as on Trello, you have Trello board. You can also do that. So they
Yeah.
give you the option, and you can drag. Oh, and I love that's also now how I used to plan out my content calendar.
Definitely. And I think that's it. And the other part, with this is basically it's to do a big brain dump. It's to get
Oh,
all the
totally.
information out of your head so that, you're able to focus on that task at hand in front of you. Put it on your board, whether that's, a written whiteboard or using an app like Braintoss. And by the way, this does integrate. It actually integrates with Evernote, which is actually interesting
Oh,
because
totally. Yeah. Yeah.
kinda,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also what I do, many of you can probably also have a similar process. I have a pipeline for my clients, right? So this is one board, potential prospects, and then another second column, I did a discovery call with them. Third column, like you can literally see how
Mhm.
I'm moving them forward, which
Yeah.
also holds myself accountable. Hey, this person is a potential client, but I haven't really talked to this person for quite some time. It's time to
Right.
check in with him or her. So it really helped me to organize my information that way. Yeah, I love it. And you can also add team members and like VAs. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Very useful tool. Basically, it integrates with obviously Evernote, Trello, Todoist, Dropbox, Wunderlist, and OneNote. But again, it basically, the goal is this: it gets all of the information out of your brain so that you can focus on the task at hand. And again, you can capture it via voice. You can take a photo of something. You can add some text. So you've got different options. Put it into the app, and then it works on iOS and Android. And then off of that, you can integrate it into some of the other platforms as well. So this way you aren't having to constantly be like, well, hey, what was that one thought? Because, some people, they get very scatterbrained. So that's the second tool we have for everybody this week. And this is a $2 app. So it's $2. You basically put it on your phone, and then you can integrate it with some of the other ones as well. But that is Braintoss. So worth checking out. With that, we're at the end of the show. So what I want to do is I want to just ask real quick, where's the best place for people to get in touch with you?
Boom, 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 boom. So that's
Perfect.
my name. And my name is super, super long. And that's my Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. LinkedIn, Facebook, the same name, every single place. So feel free to connect with me and follow my hashtag Classroom Without Walls.
Fantastic. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So for those of you, by the way, we didn't get to all the topics we want to talk about today. We have some topics about some Facebook ad bans that are also out there right now. We've got WhatsApp dark mode, Facebook Messenger for Mac, another Facebook Community Accelerator program, and much more. If you want to get those, the blog post, as I mentioned, it's going to be available at socialchefs.com/SC232. That'll be going out this weekend. And that's also available as a podcast as well as an Alexa flash briefing. So if you want the 5 to 10 minute version, you can check that out. Or if you want the full on video, check us out on YouTube or Facebook at Social Chefs. With that, Jem, we're going to be back next Thursday, right?
Yes.
So who do we have next week?
Stefan Kaplan, I believe, and great photographer, does a lot with the Pulitzer Prize group. He actually takes the photos of the winners and is really a fascinating guy. Tim and I had him on our show a few months back, and really interesting and great guy.
So we're going to have him on next Thursday. That's the 19th of March, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Stefan Kaplan. And that's going to be available at youtube.com/social chefs or facebook.com/social chefs. I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, having you just share your knowledge. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot to everybody who tuned in this week. If you're watching the replay as well, feel free to ask us any questions and we'll do our best to get back to them and answer them. But absolute pleasure having you on the show. Want to wish you continued success with your Classroom Without Walls. Definitely a great time to be tapping into that Classroom Without Walls. As we know, travel and whatnot has been constricted for a lot of people. So with that, we will see you all next Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks a lot for tuning in and have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.